the top law enforcement agencies to make information about President Bola Tinubu public. Now, Barry Howell, the judge, made the order on Tuesday, according to newsmen, and responding to a motion by Aaron Greenspan, an American who is seeking a reconsideration of an earlier ruling. Howell said protecting the information from public discourse is neither logical nor plausible. Now, Greenspan had accused the law enforcement agencies of violating the Freedom of Information Act, that's the FOIA, by failing to release with the statutory time documents relating to purported federal investigations into President Tinubu and one Abiodun Agbele. And now, about that conversation, some persons will say it's not entirely new. We had some, a drama along this particular discourse before the election and other issues as well. But now it has resurfaced, and the president was alleged to have forfeited $460,000 to the American government in 1993 after authorities lent the funds to proceeds of narcotics trafficking. At the president's election petition court, the issue of Tinubu's forfeiture of the funds featured prominently. I said it earlier when Atiku Abubakar, P2B, challenged the president's eligibility to contest Nigeria's presidency. But in a unanimous decision, the election court dismissed the suit, affirming Tinubu's election. However, on Tuesday, Judge Howell ruled partly in favor of Greenspan, and the judge noted that global responses asserted by the FBI and the Drug Enforcement DEA are improper and must be lifted. And he said the FBI and DEA failed to show that they properly invoked the FOIA. Now, what does this mean for us? The president has come to defend the matter. And in fact, Daniel Buala, one of the media aides of the president, called it a political nonsense. Mr. Bayo Ononuga, the spokesperson for the president, said there's nothing new that has not been said. Nothing new. It's just Nigeria should just disregard it and dismiss it as well. We have with us today, at this time, to give us a legal angle and, of course, implications of these. Either this is something really worth talking about, or it's just, at best, academic. He is Prince Ademola Oyedokun. He is a barrister and, of course, a political analyst. Thank you for joining us, barrister.
Good morning, Nigerians. Good morning, Western Spring Television.
Thank you.
It's my pleasure to have the opportunity of being here this morning with you.
Yes. What is your impression of this development, barrister?
My honest opinion regarding this will be viewed from three different lenses.
All right.
And the legal perspective, two, the moral implication in Nigeria, power politics, and the likely perceptions that an outsider will have regarding Nigeria over this. And then let's consider the legal perspective to it. All of us know that the Supreme Court of Nigeria is the apex court, and any decision reached by the Nigerian Supreme Court is final on any issue and cannot or can never be revisited again, except in some exceptions, which rarely happens, or which is not applicable to the current issue. The current sensational news of a U.S. court giving leave or permission to a certain researcher to have access to the purported or the alleged criminal records of the President of Nigeria, President Bola Ahmed Tinubu. It has been accorded unnecessary sensationalism. And why did I say it is unnecessary? All the records in questions are already in public domain. You've just said the final decision in the so-called early 2000 issue shows that the case concluded by asking the then Mr. Bola Ahmed Tinubu to forfeit sum of $460,000 US. And that is the final decision in that case. The record of proceedings are in public domain. the need for a court order for its further release is just to give it official coloration, just to make it an official document from U.S. government, so that you can say this was obtained from U.S. with an order of court. But with or without that order of court from U.S., the documents are in public space. And don't forget, it is a cardinal issue litigated upon in the post-2023 presidential election in Nigeria. In fact, it is one of the fulcrum of Peter Obi's case that President Bola Ahmed Tinubu was not qualified to be the president of Nigeria in view of the forfeiture order made by U.S. court against him. And then, in that case, Section 137 of the Constitution of Nigeria was considered. It says that a person is not qualified to be the president of Nigeria if the person has been convicted of a criminal offense and the person is sentenced or ordered to pay fine. The Supreme Court considered a lot of things in that case. Whether that order of forfeiture constitutes criminal fine. The court said it was not a fine, it's just a mere forfeiture. There is no order of conviction from the United States that he was convicted of a criminal offense. And the court concluded by saying, even for a person to be disqualified under that section, the criminal offense the person is convicted for must have taken place within the last 10 years. Within the last 10 years, which means that point became legally irrelevant from 2013. If that, or let me say from 2012, because this thing happened in year 2000 or earlier. So if the person of Mr. Ahmed Bola Tinubu will be disqualified under Section 137, he must have even been convicted within 10 years as at the time of contesting for election. So it is no longer legally relevant in Nigeria as a result of being stale. It's over 10 years. It is stale. And even let us even say it is not stale. It has been decided in the case of Peter Obi versus INEC, where Tinubu was involved, and the Supreme Court says he's cleared of that allegation. So all this sensationalism, all this uproar, all this brouhaha on the print, electronic, and social media, to me, is just a preparation for another round of bitter political campaign against 2027 presidential election. And then let us consider the moral aspect of it in Nigeria. The moral aspect of it in Nigeria is that should we have anybody, whether the period of the crime or alleged crime is over 10 years, over 20 years, should we have a person of past questionable character in offices? That is the moral issue. That is the moral relevance of it in Nigeria.
All right, Prince Oyedokun. According to you, you said it is still. But again, the question is, this is a criminal case here, can it actually be still? Should we just leave out criminal cases if they are still? That's number one. But number two, you said something to set the record straight here for the sake of our viewers. You said all the records are in public domain already. My question is this. If all the records are in public domain, why would the FBI and the DEA need to issue global responses? When Aaron Greenspan filed this case, the FBI and the DEA issued global responses, which means there are facts about this investigation not yet in public domain. That is why they are refusing to admit or deny possession of such details. So apparently there are facts not known to the public yet. And that's exactly what the district court in Colombia is ordering the FBI and DEA to release to the public. That's number one. Number two, I'd like to ask you, as a legal practitioner, what is the legal difference between a civil forfeiture and criminal investigation in this case?
Thank you. Your questions are three. The first one is the issue of when I said it's been stale. Under Section 137 of the Constitution of Nigeria, a person is disqualified from contesting an election if the person has been found guilty of a criminal offense where he's ordered to pay fine or sentence for an offense relating to dishonesty in the last 10 years. So if a person has been convicted of a crime in Nigeria, and that crime relates to dishonesty, like he has embezzled money as a local government chairman, that person has been convicted of a criminal offense within the last 10 years, and that offense actually relates to dishonesty, he cannot contest. But that person has been arrested, prosecuted, and found guilty, and has actually served his term of imprisonment. And the 10 years given by the Constitution has passed. That means after that 10 years, the person becomes constitutionally in Nigeria qualifies. Because the Constitution itself gives times within which the person will not be qualified. If in the last 10 years you have been convicted of an offense, so after that 10 years, you begin to count a fresh life for that person. And what is the intent of our criminal justice system is to reform. So if a person has been convicted of a crime and the person has served in terms of punishment, be it payment of fine, be it terms of imprisonment, even being it caning, it is deemed that that person has been reformed by our criminal justice system.
Oh, okay, sorry, Barrister. Sorry to cut in.
Excuse me, sir.
I just wanted to clarify something.
To our society. The person should not be discriminated against.
Yeah, so hold on, Barrister. Sorry to cut in here. Before you proceed, you said after the person has been convicted, but in this case, he wasn't convicted.
Thank you very much. I'm coming to your second and third question. So,
please go ahead.
If the Constitution says if you have been convicted of a crime relating to dishonesty in the last 10 years to the year of election, and this person, the issue you are wrapping around his neck happened about 20 years ago, the question I ask you, my interviewer, is that is it relevant legally? No. And why I say it is also still is that the Supreme Court of Nigeria has considered these issues in total, and they have made a pronouncement on it that it does not disqualify President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, which means it's a non-issue, legally speaking, in Nigeria as of today. Read the case of Peter Obi versus INEC, in which Bola Ahmed Tinubu is a party. The issue is whether, because of this this alleged U.S. criminal or civil forfeiture, whether it's qualified. And the Supreme Court says it is even more than 10 years ago. Let's assume that it's even criminal. It cannot disqualify him. So what sensationalism are we giving it here then? For what purpose and to what end? And as to the utility value, this serves the United States of America issuing order now. It serves their jurisprudence, utility value, whether the earlier decision of the district court that refused an order to release those documents was rightly done, given or not. And their higher court, the Supreme Court, the United States Appellate Court decided that the earlier decision of their district court is wrong. So it is helping their jurisprudence so that in future, such district court will refuse such an order earlier on, will not make the same mistake again. They are protecting the sanctity of their Freedom of Information Act to let the earlier judge know that the earlier decision given by that judge was wrong. The earlier judge ought to have ordered the FBI to release the document. And as to your third question, when I said the facts are already within the public knowledge, if the facts were not already within the public knowledge, the final order, whatever happens during the investigation, we may not know. But at least you must have seen the record of proceeding and how that court back then arrived at what we call a civil forfeiture. And the difference between civil and criminal cases is that civil cases are between citizens and citizens. With civil cases is a non-punitive dispute between two parties. It can be between individual and government. If I sue the federal government of Nigeria for my fundamental human rights now, it's a civil case. If I sue federal government of Nigeria now for compensation, it's a civil case. So a civil case is a case where there is no penalty, where there is no penalty against the defendant. For example, now, when we say civil forfeiture, it means it is not criminal. A criminal case ends in terms of imprisonment, death penalty, or payment of fine. The money forfeited by Tinubu here was not said to be a fine. If you commit a criminal offense of traffic offense now, you are arrested, then you pay fine for speeding, you pay fine for jumping the traffic light, for beating the traffic light, you pay fine, and so on and so forth. There is a criminal forfeiture if EFCC tries you for having embezzled government money, and you are tried criminally and you are found guilty.
All right, sorry. Just before I let you go on that one, Barrister.
That is why I call it much ado about nothing.
All right, Barrister, just before I let you go on that one, still talking about the stillness now, you quoted a section of the Constitution that says if the person has been convicted over 10 years, that is actually still. But in this case, Barrister, I just wanted you to clarify this point. In this case, there was no conviction. So can't it be seen as a case that is still under trial? That's why Aaron Greenspan is still raising it.
It is not a case under trial. As at the time Tinubu was contesting for election, he contested as senator in Nigeria. Nothing happened. It was not raised. He contested as governor 2 times. Now he has contested and won as a president. And this issue came up during his presentation as a candidate and during the election and during election petition tribunal. Supreme Court has said something about this, and the Supreme Court has cleared him in Nigeria. So it is a dead issue as far as Nigerian law is concerned
Right.
against this man.
Right. Now, you have made...
Don't forget, February 4, 2003, the American consulate wrote a letter to the Inspector General of Nigeria, who had demanded a criminal record of one Bola Ahmed Tinubu, who is currently our president. And that letter says there is no record of such person, there's no criminal record of such person in entire criminal record of the United States. This is a country where they keep record from local government to state to federal.
All right.
You must have seen that record.
You have established that. Now, couple of concerns here. Number one is this. If the case has been done with, settled up to the Supreme Court level in Nigeria, how about at the US? But you have just stated again now that, there was a time that questions was asked and letters were written to say there's no criminal record of that individual, in this case, Bola Ahmed Tinubu. That's on one side. Number two, how about the moral burden? When we keep having some of these things, and it looks like some would say maybe it's a coordinated attack on the person of the president, or there are some other theories that say maybe it's intentional from the American people or some interested parties to mudslink the person of the president. Because if you are saying the case has been done with in Nigeria, it has been done with over in the US, is possibly at best academic. Why are we having it now? And I'm mentioning the issue of timing, or it's just coincidence?
It is not just coincidence. I've said before, it is a build-up to 2027 presidential election. And politicians will use anything to smear one another. That's an angle to it. And secondly, you never can tell the end the United States authorities or the so-called researcher who is sponsoring him and what does he want to achieve with it. The only thing I can say about this is it is simply political. It is simply political, and it is a dead issue as far as Nigeria is concerned. And on the moral issue you raise, I will say every person that has been convicted of a criminal offense, against whom justice has been served, maybe the person has served in terms of imprisonment or paid the ordered fine against them, such person should not be discriminated against. Such person should not be discriminated against. If a person has been sent to prison for 5 years and having come back, that person should be presumed to have been reformed by our society, and that person should not be discriminated against in a place of work, in the marketplace.
But that's not the case in this instance. He hasn't been convicted. He hasn't been rehabilitated. We are talking about discrimination. How?
In this case now, there's not even any criminal case in place. to talk of a moral challenge in the first place. It is said to be a civil forfeiture. So what people are giving the moral or immoral perspective to it is that it is drug related. If it is drug related and this person is not sued as a criminal defendant, so what is the moral burden there? All I see is political.
Barrister Oyedokun, my colleague Daniel asked a question earlier, and I want us to look into that, especially for the purpose of information and proper education, and that's why we have you here as a legal practitioner, apart from the analysis on the political angle. When you forfeit something, and you're saying a civil forfeiture, $460,000, why was it forfeited? Because the owner doesn't need it again?
Because you are wrong. Because you are wrong. Maybe when the U.S. authorities released further facts on this, we have only seen the end of that case in the U.S. as a civil forfeiture. For example, now, if a friend of mine, I'm not saying this is the fact.
Yeah.
If a friend of mine is engaging in an illicit activity, say drug, and I do not know, for example, or as a lawyer, he passes some money to me. You understand my point? And me, I'm just in the normal discharge of my duty as a lawyer. And if eventually it is discovered that the money is sending to me or is using to pay me is a proceed of crime, can't I forfeit it to the state? Does that make me...
Is that what happened?
The drug baron?
Was that the case in this matter?
In the wisdom of the United States authorities that made it a civil forfeiture, that means they have not found anything indicting that could make them prosecute him as a criminal. There must be some other person that had been taken to court and found guilty of crime.
All right.
But if the proceed of a crime has come to me as a non-participant, I'm not a participis criminis. I'm not a criminal participant in the criminal act, but the proceed, one way or the other, gets to me. Can't I forfeit it? Not even though not as an accused person. So that is how you can get a civil forfeiture of assets in possession of somebody who is not actually a criminal.
Oh, all right, Barrister Oyedokun, because I was going to ask you on the moral side of it now, which you actually alluded to as you were speaking. So if it's a civil forfeiture, if that's the case, the question again is, looking at it morally now, from the moral angle, where did he get such funds from? Questions should be raised, okay? If we press further, $460,000 is not a small sum of money. For a Nigerian who was just an accountant with mobile.
There must be some people who engage in criminal activities whose money got into his possession. And for the authority not to charge him to court as a suspected criminal or as an accused, that means he was not personally involved, but the proceed got to him.
So,
because if he was deeply involved, he would be a defendant. He will be convicted.
All right. Whatever is expected to be released now, do you think maybe it might be helpful to really get to the matter of how it all started and how it got to this point? Because people are making allusions and logic and inference, or was it part of it? If it has been
whatever they release, how did it end in US? It ended when he was asked to forfeit 460,000 US dollars.
All right.
He was not convicted of a crime that he committed crime. He was not convicted.
All right, I understand. Let me ask you this question. Now, if you were to, legally advise the president, because one thing is this, either it is right or wrong, either it is justiciable or not, many persons will think this is not good for the image of the president. There is this toga of this uncertainty about these drug and, certificate issues. Some of those things has been done with. We know it might be politics, it might not be politics. But do you think, will you legally, if actually your legal advice is sought, that the president should go after everyone that has been involved in this, or you just think he should leave with that toga, in as much it's just about politics?
To me, if my opinion or advice is sought by the presidential team, I will just advise him to focus on his job, to continue to tackle Nigerians' problem, especially in the area of insecurity. I'm a close observer of everything he's doing, especially with regard to economy, and I support his decision over economy, floating of Naira, and the removal of subsidy. And I'm one of Nigerians who bear the brunt, the pain, the hardship that comes with it. And I hope for a better future. But I would rather encourage him to concentrate on the issue of insecurity and not to give his ears to the market of the noise, to concentrate on what he's doing. The noise over these irrelevant issues, I call them, this issue of a certificate. He is a first-class graduate of a Chicago State University that is established. His opponent went to US that time. They confirmed. Reno Makri went, Atiku went, many people went. He should not pay attention to distractions. He should face his job. And all these things were there when Nigerians voted for him in 2023. So he shouldn't bother himself to say he wants to pay attention to this. If anybody should pay attention to it, that should be APC. Should not be anybody in government. Because to me, they constitute distraction. And it is targeted to 2027 president.
All right, Barrister Oyedokun. To you, it constitutes a distraction.
Presidential
not
election.
But not to other people. So I'm asking you as a legal practitioner, what are the possible diplomatic implications of this drama? Not just between Nigeria and the United States. We have other countries in the international community. What are the possible diplomatic implications? Because to you, it might be distraction, but others won't see it as that. We're talking about President of Nigeria here being involved in a drug trafficking case. So what are the possible diplomatic implications of this?
Well, we have seen in the past the discreet involvement of the United States of America in our electoral processes, though it is illegal for foreign influence to tamper with our democratic process. But we can't pretend that it is not happening. So I don't know the actual relationship of this president with President Trump or United States as a government, but I reasonably suspect that all this media noise over this dead, irrelevant issue may be political. It may be another backdoor U.S. influence on our electoral processes. But as long as it is legally bad, it is statute bad, it is judicially bad in Nigeria to reconsider that issue again, it will be to me as if the United States is beating a dead horse. It's not going to stand up to run. It's not going to stand up to drink water. That issue to me is irrelevant and it's the wrong direction.
Oh, all right, Barrister. But are you not worried? Like you said, it may be political. But Barrister, are you not worried that the FBI and the DEA might actually have some details that they may still bring out in this case? Are you not worried that they are not just, this is not just
bring out whatever details they want to bring out? The most they can do is to embarrass the person of the president, but it does not affect his qualification in Nigeria any longer. It's over 10 years, one. Two, the Supreme Court has cleared him of this particular legal issue. So that's why I say it's a wrong direction by his political opponent.
Yes, all right, Barrister. Yes, the Supreme Court has cleared him. We are talking about Nigeria here, but I'm looking at the bigger picture. Up to you, it's irrelevant. In Nigeria, it's irrelevant. The Supreme Court has cleared him. He has immunity in Nigeria. It may not really have any effect on him in Nigeria. But let's look at the bigger picture. We are talking about international relations here and diplomatic issues. That's the question. How does it affect Nigeria? How will the rest of the world look at us? Even if we say, oh, we don't have anything against them as Nigerians, how will the rest of the world look at us as a nation?
Well, the rest of the world will look at Nigeria. They will not look at Tinubu. Every other state, that when I say state, I mean countries, we look at the relationship they have with Nigeria, the advantages they gain from Nigeria, and the terms and treaties we have. They will respect it. They are not dealing with Tinubu. They are dealing with Nigeria, and they are dealing with him on our behalf.
Right.
So it is whether Nigeria has done anything to that country that warrants adverse reaction. You cannot tell me because the character of a particular president, or for example now, look at President Donald Trump. I'm sorry to say, in my own humble opinion, there are some of his public behaviors that you may consider embarrassing to the status of the President of the United States.
All right.
But people that deal with him, they deal with the United States, they don't deal with Trump. So people that deal with us, they deal with Nigeria, they don't deal with Tinubu.
We must go. We want to appreciate you for joining us this morning, and
you are welcome.
for giving
It's my
us
pleasure having the opportunity to talk to Nigerians this morning.
Yeah,
thank you so very much
for giving us that legal angle, and we wait to see how this pan out, because essentially, either it's about the president or about the country, is essentially about the soul of this nation. Thank you very much, Prince Ademola Oyedokun, for your time.
You are welcome. Thank you so very much for having me.
All right, we'll take a quick break right now. When we return, the conversation will continue.